Hi, I'm Bob from Plastic Pipe Shop, and in this video we're going to have a look at bulkhead fittings, or sometimes called tank connector fittings. So these are fittings which are designed to go through the side of a tank, either as a drain or as a supply or an overflow. So they go through a hole in the tank and then clamp onto that wall of the tank so the fluid can flow through without leaking out. Now I've got three different types here. I've got this one, which is a metric bulkhead fitting, this which is an imperial one, and this which is a threaded imperial one. Now there's two main differences in the designs. First of all, this one here, I'll unscrew it here for you. So you can see we've got a single part here, when it finally unscrews, a single part here which has got one nut which is part of the fitting itself, so that bit doesn't move on here. So this is all one piece of solid plastic. We've then got two Epdm seals, and we've got a nut on the back of it. So if you imagine this going through a hole on the tank, we have one seal on this side of the tank, and then this screws on onto the other side of the tank. That gives us a really good seal without having to use any silicone or anything like that, because there's no way that the water can actually come along the thread and come out on this side, because this is acting as a dam, it's acting as a seal and a barrier. The only way that might happen if you're using a fairly rough GRP tank, a fiberglass tank, and it's quite rough on the outside, then you might need to put just a tiny bit of silicone around this surface here, not around here, inside here, but around this surface here, just so that it seals up any roughness on the outside of the tank to stop any leakage coming by. This one's the same. I'll unscrew this. You can see this has got a female thread on both sides here. So I'll unscrew this. As you can see, this is a fixed one piece as well here. So in the same way as this one here, it's impossible for the water to actually come past and along the thread. With this one, the Epdm seal actually sits in a recess inside here, and then as it goes through the inside of the tank, we then thread on the inside of the tank, then thread this on, holding this other seal in position as it's threaded on. With all of these, when you're making the seal on them, don't feel you've really got to horse them as tight as you can get them. Hand tight should be enough for them, as long as it's a smooth line tank. If it's a rough tank, then as I say, a little bit of silicone, and again, just hand tight. If you try and do it any more than that, the Epdm seals will start to deform and will start to push out of the system like this whilst you're trying to tighten it, and you'll find that you never actually manage to get it as tight as you feel you need it. But you don't need it that tight, you only need it hand tight. The other type of system, which is with the inch systems, you see on this one, it's really just a piece of threaded pipe, and these two nuts move up and down the pipe. Because of that, even if this is right the way threaded right to this end, it's still not a perfect seal around here at all. So we can have our Epdm seal here going onto our tank, but there's always a risk that the water is actually going to follow the thread along underneath that Epdm seal, underneath the nut, and will drip out here unless we put any silicone on. So we have to put quite a decent daub of silicone on tank connectors like this. I like to wind these right up the end as far as they'll go. I'll put a bead of silicone, a very smallish bead, around the middle of the thread here, where the thread marries up onto the flange, all the way around, 360 degrees around. Push this down gently on top so it spreads it out a bit, and then I'll seal it onto my tank and seal it in from the other side. Again, if it's a rough kind of tank, if it's a GRP tank and it's a rough outside of the tank, there's a little bit of silicone around here as well on this, on the top of the Epdm seal, wouldn't go amiss either. One other thing to think about with tank connectors, this one and this one, is that the thread on them has to take a nut. So the nut has to thread all the way along and all the way back. And because of that, unusually for plastic systems, it's a parallel male thread. If it was a tapered male thread, the nut would fall off here and it wouldn't get on much past here because it would be a tapered thread. So it's a parallel thread, and people are sometimes frustrated because they put one of these fittings on and they have in their head that they're going to put a threaded fitting on this side of it. Now, most threaded fittings in PVC are taper threads, so it's not going to go on all the way because this is a parallel thread. It will only go on for 3 or 4 threads on there. Okay, so don't be surprised if that happens. With the metric ones, one advantage we do have is, although the Imperial is made out of a piece of pipe, so this is a 2-inch one, so it's a 2-inch pipe on the outside. This one is a moulded fitting, so it's a 50mm socket on the inside, a 63mm spigot on the outside, and also on the inside here is a 50mm socket. So the socket size on this side, on the inside, is the same as the socket size on the outside. So rather than having to find something to put on that thread, we can glue a piece of pipe in if we want and put an elbow on. So these are much more versatile fittings on the metric ones. Also, if you want to put something on the inside of the tank and you feel that having a socket or something on the outside of this is too far and it's sticking out too much, that's where one of these is really nice, because it's an internal thread, so it's a 2-inch internal thread in here. It's very flush with the tank, so if you have that on the inside, that's all you've got sticking on the inside of your tank is just that bit there. Then you can thread a plain to threaded nipple into there and then put an elbow coming nice and neatly off the side. So it's a much lower profile on these fittings. So it really depends on your application. First of all, are you metric, are you imperial? How neat do you want it on the inside of the tank? Do you want to be able to glue pipe on the inside and the outside? So it's up to you which one to use. I would recommend always using a hole saw to cut the hole in the tank, not trying to do it with a jigsaw or anything else. If you look on our web pages and you go to the pages that have the tank connectors you want on, there's a link on those pages to our hole saw page, and it will tell you the correct size of hole saw which you need for it. Thanks for watching. Bye.